Gameon and his squad were transported to an unfamiliar place. A village of sort. Its thatched roof cottages nestled among rolling hills, their wooden frames weathered but sturdy, adorned with carved symbols that glinted faintly under the morning sun. A gentle stream babbled at the village's edge, its waters catching the sunlight in fleeting sparkles. Gameon's staff felt heavy in his hand, the Soul Eater Rune pulsing faintly, as if sensing its own history unfolding. A somewhat familiar figure emerged, his boyish face framed by tousled brown hair, his eyes bright with curiosity. He asked if Gameon was there to take away the treasure. Then a voice was heard. "Ted, get over here." The voice, likely from an old man, said. Yes, the familiar figure looked like Ted, Gameon's best friend who had sacrificed himself, the original owner of the Soul Eater Rune. A villager told Gameon that this place was called the Village of the Hidden Rune. Near a house to the north, young Ted stood beside an old man. He was the village chief and Ted's grandfather. "Did that woman send you here as her messengers?" The village chief said. The group was puzzled. There were so many questions to be asked. "If she didn't send you, you'd best leave this place immediately." The village chief then dragged Ted into his house. Gameon followed into the house, seeking answers. "What are you so scared of? Is it that woman you keep mentioning?" Cleo asked. A response came, but it came from outside the house. "That woman? Well, that's a rather rude way to speak about someone." A woman's voice answered from outside. Windy, her blue robes billowing like a storm, strode with imperious grace, her golden hair whipping wildly, her eyes blazing with hunger. Beside her, Neclord's tan, waxy face twisted into a cruel smirk, his purple cape snapping in the gale, his glowing red eyes scanning the village like a predator. The ground trembled faintly under their approach, the air thick with the metallic tang of impending doom. Windy demanded for the rune, but the village chief did not give in. Chaos erupted as Windy raised her hands, and a torrent of flame roared forth, engulfing the village's edge. Cottages burst into crackling infernos, their wooden beams splintering with sharp pops, sending plumes of acrid black smoke skyward. The villagers' screams pierced the air, mingling with the frantic bleating of scattered livestock and the crash of collapsing roofs. Ted's grandfather staggered forward, the Soul Eater Rune flaring with dark tendrils that coiled around him, their inky wisps hissing as they clashed with the flames. The Soul Eater's energy enveloped him and Ted in a shimmering veil. The ground beneath them rippled, and they vanished in a flash, reappearing in a secret chamber within his house. The old man's face was grim, his breaths ragged. Sensing his end was near, he asked Ted to hold out his right hand. The rune's glow transferring to the boy's hand with a soft, resonant chime. The Soul Eater's tendrils curled around Ted's arm, their touch both cold and searing as the rune bonded to him. Outside, Windy's flames surged closer, the heat warping the air, the crackle of burning wood drowning out the stream's babble. Forgive me, Ted. I've passed on to you a painful fate. You must remember never to unleash the power of this rune, he said to Ted, and then turned his gaze to Gameon. Travelers, there's a secret passage up ahead that leads outside the village. Please, take my grandson Ted and run. I will keep Windy distracted to buy you some time. Just like what Ted would do 300 years later, the village chief bought time with his life so the group could escape. Gameon led his squad and escorted Ted out of the house and down a path by the stream. A man stood before them. His presence was a storm of menace, shrouded in an aura that seemed to warp the air around him. Tall and lean, his silhouette was both graceful and predatory, moving with a fluidity that hinted at otherworldly power. His face was obscured by a sleek obsidian helmet, its surface polished to a mirror-like sheen, reflecting distorted glimpses of the world around him. "Don't get too close, Viktor. That guy's strong," Cleo shouted. "Yeah, I know. He's not human. I can tell there is something horrific about him even from this distance," Viktor said. The man was Uber, and he was with Windy. Just as it seemed like a fight was inevitable, Neclord appeared and instructed Uber to return to Windy. As the dust settled, the group gathered back at the burnt village. Cleo pieced everything together and figured that the squad had been transported through time and space, back to where Ted lived 300 years ago. The village of the Hidden Rune lay in desolate ruin, its once vibrant heart reduced to a smoldering graveyard under a sky choked with ash. Where quaint thatched cottages had stood, now only skeletal remnants remained, their charred beams jutting like broken bones from heaps of blackened debris. The air hung heavy with the acrid stench of burnt wood and straw, mingled with the bitter tang of melted iron from the shattered forge, its anvil half buried in ash. A light glowed from the spot where the squad first landed when they arrived at this place. Perhaps entering the light would bring them back to where they came from. Gameon could not bring Ted along, as that would have changed the past. Listen to me, Ted. You've got to be strong. You must never give up. And don't let anyone know about the rune on your right hand, Cleo said to young Ted. The rest, as they said, was history. The squad entered the light, and they were transported back to where they came from. Outside, the celestial sword floated above the pedestal. The sword was sentient, and it had chosen Viktor as his partner. It would later prove to be the weapon needed to defeat Neclord. Using an escape talisman, the squad teleported back to Clon Temple. Hugo, the librarian, stood at the back of the temple. By giving him this illustrated war scroll, which could be found in the Cave of the Past, he would join the Liberation Army. He would then be the librarian at Gameon Castle, allowing Gameon to read the old books that he had collected thus far. With the Celestial Sword on hand, Gameon and his squad were ready to face Neclord. They returned to the warriors' village to make the final preparations before going to Neclord's castle. In the item store, Window could be recruited. Gameon handed him the Window Orb, which he found in the Cave of the Past, and Window would then join the Liberation Army. Window would allow you to change the frame of your in-game dialogue boxes. At the village square, Zorak had already gathered a group of warriors and was ready to march to Neclord's castle. Viktor then introduced the Celestial Sword to Zorak and told him that it was the weapon that could defeat Neclord. Talking sword? Will it defeat the vampire? Zorak was skeptical. Of course I will. Vampires don't stand a chance against me. The Celestial Sword replied with confidence. While Gameon and his squad were searching for the weapon to defeat Neclord, Zorak received a wedding invitation from Neclord. There was no time to waste, and the group would need to head to Neclord's castle immediately. Neclord's castle loomed over the Lorimar region like a jagged wound against the twilight sky, its facade a monument to Gothic dread and vampiric dominion. The structure rose from a craggy cliff, its towering spires piercing the heavens, their tips crowned with iron gargoyles whose hollow eyes seemed to watch the world below. The castle's walls, forged from dark, weathered stone, were slick with moss and streaked with veins of crimson mineral. Zorak had already led his group of warriors outside the castle gate. Neclord stood in front of them and said that the wedding would commence when the sun had fully set. Gameon, you are the leader of the Liberation Army, are you not? I extend an invitation for you to be my honored guest tonight, Neclord said. He gave Gameon and his squad a challenge to reach the top of the castle before sunset, and the gate was imbued with magic. Only those who were invited were allowed through. As such, Zorak and his warriors could only stand outside, and Gameon would then venture into the castle together with his squad. Hicks, who had always lacked confidence, wanted to go with Gameon. He wanted to protect and rescue the person he loved with his own hands. It's true that I'm unproven as a warrior, nor am I strong. But still, I need to rescue Tengaar with my own hands. I swore to her I would. Please, let me keep this one promise to her, Hicks said, voice firm as he stood forward, his eyes filled with resolve. Gameon accepted his request, and Zorak officially recognized him as a warrior of the village. All warriors from the village would be granted the right to name their sword. Hicks already had one in mind since years ago. The name would be Tengaar, the person whom he loved and wanted to protect with his life. The race to the summit of Neclord's castle began as the afternoon sun dipped low, casting long blood-red rays across the Lormar cliffs, urging Gameon and his squad, Hicks, Viktor, Cleo, Kai, and Valeria. Tio hastened before Sunset's veil empowered the vampire. The castle stood as a grand, imposing edifice, its polished obsidian walls gleaming with an unnatural luster. Rising from the crag in a symphony of Gothic splendor, the celestial sword at Viktor's side humming with a silvery blue pulse, its runes flickering like stars as they ventured in. The castle's grand hall enveloped them in opulent shadow, its vaulted ceiling a masterpiece of arched stone, inlaid with intricate silver filigree that caught the glow of chandeliers dripping with amethyst crystals, their light casting violet prisms across the marble floor. The air was crisp, scented with polished wood and faint incense, undercut by a subtle whiff of decay. Ornate tapestries, vibrant with lunar motifs and gilded threads, rustled softly along the walls, their colors vivid despite the castle's master. A sudden, piercing wail shattered the stillness as specters materialized, ghostly figures with hollow, glowing eyes, their silken shrouds billowing like mist. Their keening cries clawed at the squad's minds, echoing off the polished stone. Hicks's sword trembled, its blade slicing through a specter with a soft hiss, while Cleo's fire rune roared, flames crackling as they seared the air. The specters dissolving in shimmering wisps, their wails fading into the chandelier's gentle chime. The squad hurried up a sweeping staircase, its black marble steps gleaming, bordered by banisters carved with coiling serpents, their emerald eyes glinting. The walls shimmered with polished runes, their purple glow pulsing in rhythm with the squad's pounding footsteps. A guttural chant swelled, and a zombie sorcerer emerged on a landing, its skeletal frame draped in pristine, if tattered, robes, its green eyes blazing within a velvet hood. Kai's staff whistled, deflecting a bolt with a sharp crack, while Valeria's falcon rune unleashed a shrieking gale, tearing at the sorcerer's robes with a ripping sound. Viktor's greatsword struck, its thud reverberating like a gong, the sorcerer crumbling into glittering dust that swirled in the staircase's draft. Higher, they raced through a majestic gallery, the artwork depicting Neclord's triumphs in vibrant hues. A puzzle presented itself, blocking the path ahead. Gameon would need to solve it before he could proceed further. He would view the paintings in the following sequence to open the secret door. The chestnut tree in the morning, then the woman in the early afternoon, followed by the peasant girl out in the evening, and finally, King of the Night. The secret door clicked open, and the squad continued their mission. The clatter of hooves heralded zombie unicorns, their sleek, gray hides unnaturally glossy, their blackened horns gleaming like obsidian, their red eyes burning with malice. Their snorts rumbled like thunder, hooves sparking on the marble as they charged, horns slashing with a high-pitched whine. Gameon's staff, fueled by the Soul Eater, struck with a hiss of dark tendrils, toppling one unicorn with a heavy crash, its form shattering into polished bone. Hicks's blade rang against another's horn, cracking the creatures into shards that glittered like glass. The gallery's silence restored save for the squad's panting breaths. The final sprint led to a grand arched bridge within the castle's core, its polished granite surface reflecting the fading sunlight streaming through open spires. The horizon now a thin orange line racing toward dusk. Chains gleamed, their metallic clinks echoing over a chasm where violet mist swirled below, its depth swallowing the squad's torchlight. The bridge's railings, wrought with lunar crescents, shone under the chandelier's glow, their crystals tinkling softly. The air grew heavy, laced with the coppery tang of blood and the distant, haunting wail of an organ. Viktor's sword hummed louder, sensing Neclord's proximity. Gameon shoved open the throne room's oak doors, their polished surface carved with a glowing moon, hinges purring smoothly, revealing the opulent chamber where Tengaar stood captive, Neclord's silhouette framed against the vibrant tapestries beyond. The castle's grandeur a stark contrast to the desperate battle looming as sunset neared. Wow, you certainly took your time. I'd grown weary of waiting, Neclord said. Hicks was eager to save Tengaar. Viktor could not wait to avenge his village of North Window. I swear on my sword, Tengaar, I will defeat you, Neclord. Hicks shouted as he readied his sword. Gameon, I will take the rune from your right hand and present it to Lady Windy. Neclord said coldly. The battle erupted with a deafening roar as Viktor charged. The celestial sword raised, its blade slicing through the air with a resonant hum. Neclord's moon rune flared, a shimmering purple barrier coalescing, but the celestial sword's power surged, its runes blazing as Viktor struck, shattering the magical shield with a crack like breaking glass, the fragments dissolving in a shower of sparks. The vampire's smirk faltered, his cape snapping as he leaped back, his claws slashing with a sharp whistle. Hicks, his lanky frame taut with resolve, swung his sword, the blade ringing against Neclord's dark energy. The blast of chilling mist roared forth, its icy howl enveloping him. Hicks staggered, his boots scraping the marble floor. Viktor roared, his greatsword cleaving through the air, its blade clanging against Neclord's summoned shadows, each blow reverberating like a hammer on steel. A spectral bolt from Neclord struck Viktor's chest, its crackling force sending him reeling, his armor scorched, his breaths heaving as he leaned on his sword, its tip scraping the marble. Kai spun his staff, its wood whistling in precise arcs, aiming for Neclord's heart. But the vampire's claws lashed out, their dark energy hissing as they sent Kai sprawling, his staff rolling away with a dull clunk. He fell unconscious, the chamber's eerie silence broken only by the chandelier's faint tinkle and the squad's ragged gasps. Gameon swung his staff, the Soul Eater Rune's tendrils coiling with a sibilant hiss, their inky forms lashing at Neclord, who dodged with a taunting chuckle, his cape swirling. The vampire's claws raked Gameon's side, the impact a searing jolt, blood seeping through his tunic as he stumbled, his staff striking the floor with a sharp tap. Cleo's fire rune glowed, her flames surging in a roaring torrent, their crackle filling the chamber with heat. But Neclord danced through the blaze, his tan skin unmarred, his mocking laughter echoing over the fire's din. Hicks fought valiantly thus far, but Neclord shapeshifted into a cloud of bats that clawed at him from all angles. Hicks collapsed unconscious, his sword clattering beside him, the sound echoing in the vast chamber. Valeria's Falcon Rune had dealt massive damage to Neclord. She was also drained of energy as the fight dragged out. Neclord raised his right arm and lightning magic was conjured. Valeria, too weak to dodge, was struck by the magic. She crumpled, her blade skittering across the floor, its metallic scrape fading as she lay still, her breathing shallow. The squad's strength waned, their movements sluggish, the throne room's opulence a cruel backdrop to their struggle. Gameon, blood dripping from his wounds, swung his staff weakly, the Soul Eater's tendrils flickering, their hiss faint. Viktor, his face etched with pain, slashed again, the celestial sword's hum faltering, its blade nicking Neclord's cape with a soft tear. But the vampire's claws retaliated, gashing Viktor's arm, the wound's wet snap forcing him to his knees. Cleo, her face pale, her tunic torn, stood defiant, her fire rune pulsing brighter, its glow casting stark shadows across the dais. Neclord lunged, his claws gleaming, but Cleo channeled every ounce of her strength. Her rune erupted with cataclysmic inferno. The flames roared like a living beast, their deafening crackle drowning the vampire's snarl. The heat warping the air as it engulfed him. The blaze consumed the dais, its violet flames merging with Cleo's fire. The combined light blinding, the air thick with the acrid stench of burning cloth and scorched stone. Neclord's form writhed within the inferno, his cape disintegrating in a shower of embers, his red eyes dimming as the moon rune's hum faltered, replaced by a high-pitched whine. That sword, Neclord said in disbelief. I am the Night Rune incarnate, a lowly servant of the night like you never stood a chance against me. The celestial sword replied. I have traveled far and wide to seek revenge on you for murdering my family and friends. Now that journey comes to an end. Prepare to die. Viktor roared as he gave Neclord the final blow. The battle was won and Tengaar was rescued. It was a tough fight and Gameon was glad that everyone was still alive. This also marks the end of the episode. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe for more. Thanks, and see you in the next one.